once you start to see that your business is at a growth point and you cannot manage everything that's going on yourself, then it is definitely time for you to say,
let's talk about the hiring process. When do you know when you need someone, and what does that process look like? So, Cecil, let's start with your experience, and then we can jump into mine. But when do you know that you need to hire someone? Like, what are you looking at?
um, when you start to think, I think when you cannot leave your business, or when you leave or want to go on vacation, or you want to do something, or you have to be out of the office and there's no one there to take on business, whether it be to service it or to start to get new business, or just to answer a quick question of some new customer coming in or a potential customer coming in. Once you don't have that, I think that's when you start to realize, okay, I have to be here all the time for my business, and that is a failing strategy, right? Because if you have to be there 24/7 for your business to be profitable, then there's a problem. That's why you got to build a team. And that's when you have to start to say, okay, I think I need somebody to do this. And how do I do this? Right. So that's been my experience. When I'd gone through that in the beginning and having to be there all the time and not really being able to take a vacation and not be able to take any time off at all, and after 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, then you can say, okay, you can take a little breather, but you're back at it the next morning. And if you're not there, the phone doesn't get picked up, or it gets forwarded to your cell phone, or, you got to answer a question. You're in the middle of some other meeting with someone else, and you got to pick up and answer a question. Whereas, determine you get somebody else to help you out, service your accounts, talk to clients, identify new business opportunities. That's when your business starts to grow and starts to do better.
Yeah, what I've noticed with small business owners, and even with managers, directors for larger organizations, when there's I'll say, your business is inside and out. You know it, because you started it. You know it. You know every end of it, and there's a control factor.
Mm-hmm.
And many small business owners, right? They're like, well, I can do this in, a few seconds, where it may take someone, I need to train them. It's going to take them some time. Maybe it may take several months for them to come up to speed. It's going to be, it's just easier if I go ahead and do it myself.
Yeah.
Right. And so for you, right, my question for you is, at what point do you, or when did you realize, like, I got to kind of take a step back, and you know what, it's now costing me money, right? I'm actually losing, right, opportunities because I am so involved, and I want to do it all, but the reality is that I can't. At what point when did you hit that wall?
Well, that was a revenue decision. So it was basically when I started seeing certain amounts coming in, and I'm starting to say, okay, all right, this looks good, but it can look better if I have more time to do more things. Right. So one, you have to identify, can you afford someone new? Right. And then identify, how can it, what is your budget and what you can afford to spend. Right. So maybe you can't afford a full-time person, but you can afford a part-time person. Maybe start there. Or maybe work with an agency or whatever, right, to really identify, what's going to work in your budget. But once you start to see that your business is at a growth point and you cannot manage everything that's going on yourself, then it is definitely time for you to say, okay, I need someone. And that's almost like a common sense thing, you would think. But I could also see a situation where you're so used to doing it yourself. You got a certain amount of money coming in. And then that is the last thing you think of is hiring someone new, right? Because the fear kicks in of managing someone or finding the right person. Those sorts of things can sort of hinder you. So I can see that as a way of people sort of pausing on, taking action on that. But it is 100% necessary. Once you start to bring people on to help in building your business, building a team around you that can move your business forward, that's when I think that it starts to get to a point where you're really running a business, right? You're running something that is generating revenue, even when you're not around. You know?
Right. Right. And so I think a lot of managers also get stuck with the risk factor, bringing in the wrong person, I should say.
Oh
Right.
yeah,
What if I spend all this time and then I bring in a person that actually, instead of helping me, is now becoming, more of a heavyweight on my business because for whatever reason, right?
yeah,
And we can
yeah.
talk about the hiring process in a second, but like, that's one of those things where you there's definitely a risk, right?
Mhm.
I know I've hired people that after a couple of months, I'm like, oh, I think I made a mistake. It happens, right? To the best of us.
Yeah.
And so again, someone can interview well, and then
Mhm.
they come in, and you're like, what happened?
Yeah.
I've seen that too, and I've seen also people who try to, I believe it or not, I've seen people who actually have tried to game the system because of remote opportunities. So
Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
that's also a risk. So what would you like? What would you tell those business owners? And then we can talk about the different options that they have. But what would you tell those business owners that are like, you know, um, what happens if I bring the wrong person in? How do I deal with that?
Man, that's a question everybody has, right? It's a risk that we all take, right? In starting a business, right? Especially if it's we were there in the beginning doing everything ourselves. Then you start to think, okay, am I going to bring this person on, and how are they going to do what I do, right? And I think we've had this discussion with in other episodes where training is key, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't expect people to know everything as soon as they come in, so that's where the training part of it really comes in very heavily. And I know if you're running a small business, it becomes very hard to think about, okay, how I'm going to get training, how I'm going to train this person to get them up to speed to do the things the way that I need them to do it. But it's necessary, right? You have to take the time out to do that. So, you gotta have like standard operating procedures for certain things that you do. So these are sorts of things that you bring in. I know when I hired my first service rep, that was one of the first thing I used the service, right, to bring people in, and I just interviewed. And that was one of the major things, right? They help you get that together, right? So they know, what steps need to be taken, how you like to do business. And then as things go on, you really talk to them about how you want them to deal with clients, what your expectations are as far as communicating with clients, and how not only um, direct conversations, but in responses. Like if, let's say, an email comes in or a phone call comes in, and you may miss it, but jump on a call and get right back to them. Make sure that you can answer them, talk to them, and make sure you understand what the issue is. It may not be anything. They may have a simple question, but the response time is a big thing. At least for me, that's always been a big thing for me. If someone
Yeah.
emails you, says, okay, whatever it may be, I just had a question about this. If I can't answer it, then my staff needs to get back on that and answer that as soon as possible. You know, so but that's my personal expectation. So I had conversations with my guys about that, and again, you go through these operating procedures and make sure everybody video documents if you can, because now that's a lot easier. Video document the work that they're doing. So if
Yep.
something new comes in, you can use that to train the next person as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I got to say, it's funny you bring up the video because documentation is great. But people forget that, hearing and seeing, right,
Yeah,
is much easier to digest than, oh, I got to read this 50-page document as
yeah,
opposed to, oh, I got to watch this 10-minute video. I think a
right.
lot of people miss that opportunity because I see it in I see it in my business as well, where people, other managers are hiring people, and they have procedures, and that's all great. But I've seen someone who's taken it to the next step and says, "Oh no, I just had the person, whoever was doing this previously, I just had them document it in video and walk them through it in audio, right? So they're clicking, but here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm doing. Here's why I'm doing it. And
Yep.
then the next person that comes in, they just watch it and they can see, they can see the screens, they can see all the clicks, they can understand why they're doing what they're doing. And it just makes it easier for them to retain it as opposed to, I got to read this, again, I got to read this 100-page document and I don't even know why I'm doing what I'm doing, but they told me to do it. So I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that I think that's something that people overlook. That it's an easy hack. So
Oh
definitely
yeah.
recommend it.
Yeah, that's a big thing. I try to make, not say make, but I have my guys do that with processes that they're going through now, right? So if even with just dealing with a client to do certain things from an insurance standpoint, just make sure, go online, document it, not deal with any specific client information when you're documenting it. But we have like a dummy client that's put into the system, and just walk through that process, right? Walk through it on a Zoom call, record it, and then upload it into the system, into our learning platform. So if anybody coming on, they can just go on, take a look at how it's done. And that's really a good feature, because it makes it a heck of a lot easier for somebody to click on a button, view the video, and just sort of mimic the same feat, mimic the same movements, and just makes things go faster.
Mm. All right. So let's talk about the process, the hiring process for you. So what does that look like for you?
Yeah.
Um, how do you decide what you're looking for, whether it's an experienced or someone out of college, number of years, the type of background, and
Yeah.
then the interview process. But let's talk about that process, what that looks like for you.
Well, I'm kind of going through that now, trying to identify individuals that, because we're in a process. CNH Insurance is in a process of growing, right? So we're looking for producers to come on board, work on life insurance, property and casualty insurance. Find a way to build a book on their own terms. Sort of build something that they can be proud of for the future. And it's really about one, how do you identify individuals that may want to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going through that process of really trying to figure out what's the best options there. So is it social media? Is it word of mouth? Is it, networking to see if anyone knows of individuals that are looking? And I'm getting to the point where it seems like it's everything, right? And then once you get to that point, it's like, once you do get people that come on board that are interested in looking for work and looking for a new opportunity, then it's like, well, how do you make sure that they're the right person? Now, the right person is it's not really a gut feeling. I don't think. I think it's really more, you're looking at a person's personality, right? So a person could be very good as far as the technical stuff, being able to understand systems, go through things, maybe even know the products very well inside and out, but they can't communicate, right? So
Yep.
that's not a salesperson, right? Because in sales, you have to be able to communicate, but that would be a perfect like service rep, right? Someone that can be behind the scenes, help people out, get people through things, and not necessarily have to, get them to the point of understanding the product to the point where they want to say, okay, well, I want to buy something, right? So really getting those type of people, it's an interview process. I wish I had a straight answer, because I'm just like everybody else. I deal with agencies that go through this process of identifying, doing the background checks and all that, and they bring people to me that I want to interview. Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I've done it in the past, and that's been very good.
Yeah.
But there's a cost associated with that. You could also do things like, utilizing social media platforms that focus on, putting job postings out there so you can get interviews. But then that takes your time. And do you have the time to go through all of that, instead of just hiring someone that is that's their main job? That's their main thing, to identify someone that you can talk to that is interested in doing the work that you're trying to put out there.
No.
You got to put feelers out. You got to try to figure out what works best for you. I mean, my time is very limited. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it becomes
Let
really
me.
tough.
Yeah. No. It's. So I'll tell you this. Well, let me just take a step back. Let me ask you: do you look? I think the saying or the question is this someone that I would want to have coffee with, after work, or have a drink with after work? Is that
Mm.
something that you're looking for? Are you looking for someone that you could say, hey, this is someone that not only can do the job, but someone that will be a good culture fit, someone that, people are going to trust? Or am I just looking for someone that's just going to execute? And I'm not really focusing on like I'm not worried about spending time with them after work. I'll just let them execute. They do their job, and in and out, they're gone.
No,
Right.
I
Like,
think, I think when you're building an environment, you have to have people that are personable, right? People that can have other people come on board and there's not going to be a lot of friction, right? Because I mean, we've been in environments where there are people that think that they know it so well that they can be basically jerks to everybody else.
yep.
That doesn't fly, right? Who Nobody wants to work with that person, regardless of how well they're doing. I mean, you could be bringing in millions and millions of dollars, but if you're a jerk and your team doesn't want to support you, everyone you deal with think you're a jerk, and you're being fake to the clients that are actually bringing in the business. This is just a matter of time before that ends badly. So I personally look for someone that's sort of, that's personable, decent person, is, has empathy for others. Cause I think, and what I do from an insurance standpoint, that is a big part of it, especially if you're selling like things like life insurance products. That's very big to help understand what people are going through, the reasons why they're doing what they're doing, why they're looking for this insurance, what they're trying to protect. And then you have, even on a commercial side, when you're dealing with a person that owns a business, that business is their baby, right? Taking care of that, making sure that they have something for the future, because that's why they put themselves in that place of owning a business, right? So someone that can really talk to people, understand, be empathetic, and identify ways of helping them, right? That's what I kind of look for. So if I can talk to the person, they can have a conversation with me, and they can show me that they're real, they're not fake, um, you know, and not a con man or a con woman, then yeah, I think they can be a good fit, because that's, at least from an insurance standpoint, that's really all it is, man. You're talking to people, you're listening more than you're talking, and you're really trying to identify ways to help. And if you're open and you enjoy helping people, then that's really more the type of person I'm looking for. I don't really care if you can sell 1 million policies in one day. If you're doing it without any kind of honor or empathy towards others, I really don't need you.
Right. Right.
You know what
So
I
you
mean?
mentioned, yeah. So you mentioned so obviously there's the technical aspect to it, the technical skills, being able to perform on the job.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the soft skills, right? Being able to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's also like I'll call it the EQ skills, the emotional intelligence, and those are a little harder to assess. I know that there's companies that will do behavioral tests,
Yeah. Yeah.
in addition to just you having to do the interview.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on those?
Well, the behavioral test, I've heard not bad things, but I feel like that really focuses on the person, how they feel that day, right? Because I've heard situations where people have taken those tests and they didn't perform well, but they had an advocate in the company that said, no, you really need to take a closer look at this person. They bring the person in, interview them, hire them, and they're a top performer.
Mm-hmm.
So they would have really lost out on having a decent person into their group to make their business better and to help that person obviously thrive in an area where they would thrive in, right?
Yep.
So, and that's all because they may have not had their coffee in the morning, or, you know, the kids got on their nerves before they got on the call. Who knows, right? But for whatever reason, they didn't perform well that day. And now you miss out on an opportunity of having someone that would fit really well into your organization and be a win-win situation for both of you.
Yeah.
So I'm not really a fan of that. I know that people do it. I've taken those tests. I've gotten jobs because of those tests, but it's really dependent on how people are that day. And I know they'd say, "Oh no, it's more than that, more than that," but too many times you can miss too many good opportunities.
Yeah. I mean, I use them. They're more supplemental for me. I mean, they provide some interesting data points. But for me, it's you'll find this interesting. You'll find this funny, amusing. For me, when I interview, I do it very much the way we interview our guests. I will prepare and I'll have a set of questions. And depending on the role, I will have a standard set of questions. But I
Right.
will pivot I will pivot during the interview process depending on what the person is saying, how they're saying it.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, it's more important. I want to understand their thought process,
Yeah.
right? Like
Right.
again, you may not know something, but if you can think things through and get to a point where you're saying, "Hey, I'm going to figure this out one way or another," for me, that's valuable because I'm like, you know what? This is someone that will try their hardest. They're not going to come in here and be like, well, no one told me I had to do that, or no one,
Right.
I'm waiting for someone to tell me what to do next. You're looking for people. I'm sure this is true for you, Cecil. You're looking for people that are going to have ambition, take initiative, right? All those things, uh, have a sense of urgency just to get things done, especially as a business owner, right? You want people to treat things the way you would treat them, right? And so, like most, I'll say most, if not all, business owners have a sense of urgency, right? Because it's like you can't slow down, you can't. It's got to get done. You got to, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that those people have similar qualities, no matter what their role, right? Like it could be the janitor for your.
Right.
You
Yeah.
want the
I get that.
janitor
Yeah.
to be like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna make sure this place is spotless, like everything is
Right.
in order, right? Everything's where it needs to be. So again, regardless of the role. And so for me, it's that. Also, again, obviously understanding the technical, whatever that is, whatever that piece is, the part of the job, whether and understanding that if you're bringing someone with experience, because I also have interviewed, and I'm not sure if you've experienced this, but I've interviewed people with like 20 plus years of experience,
Mm.
and on the phone they sound great,
Yeah.
and then I bring them in, and as I start to pivot on my questions, because now I'm getting a little bit more in depth into the details,
Yeah.
it's not the same, right? And you're like,
Oh
oh
yeah.
man, this
Yeah.
person sounded great on the phone, but now that I have them in front of me, they're
Yeah.
stumbling, right? And it's sort of like because I've seen people with 20 years of experience who, again, they stumble, and I've seen people who have a few years and they come in and they knock it out of the park,
Yeah.
you know? And so, yeah, I use some of these things. Again, I try to collect as much information and data points as I can and then make an informed decision based on that data. Again, it's not perfect because again, I think I have a pretty good track record if I do say so myself, but I have hired
Yeah.
some people that that after a couple of months I'm questioning, I'm like, oh, I think I made a mistake, right? It just,
Right. Yeah.
and it happens.
Yeah. And that's a tough thing to deal with, when you say, well, I think I made a mistake, but that's the chance you kind of take, right? I mean, everybody's looking for the best person for, the role that they're
Mhm.
putting out there, especially if, you're from a small business perspective, you're trying to build something, right? And, other people may have all obviously built businesses in the past, but this is your thing,
Mhm.
right? And you don't have all the answers and you don't want to make a mistake, but you have to take a chance, just like you took a chance when you started the business. So you're going to have to take a chance on this person that you're bringing in. So, do your due diligence, talk to them. I mean, I'm saying it like, I'm a professional at it. No, I'm definitely not. But these are the types of things that I think about when I have to do it. Right. So, everybody has their own path, but, I think you really got to put that due diligence in, take the time to try to understand the type of people you want in the environment. Are these people you can train, people that'll listen, people that'll be good to your clients? Like, I think empathy is a huge, huge part of that, right? Trying to understand, you know, is this person going to care about the people they're working with?
Yeah.
Whether it be clients or other employees. And you can teach everybody. You can teach the rest of that stuff, but you can't teach that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so, how quickly do you act, Cecil? Because I know everyone has a different opinion. How quickly do you act when you make that determination that you've hired the wrong person?
Well, I think it's got to be kind of. I mean, you give people a certain chance, so like you give people a chance. But if it's like outlandish, like depending on what they do, like if you come in, you hire someone, you say, okay, for insurance, it's a little simple because there's performance, right? So where your numbers need to be by a certain period of time, and you're going to give people a certain period of time to like catch up, right? And you understand that. So it's not like you're going to say, okay, you got 2 months to do this right. If not, I got to let you go. No, it's not really like that. You're pretty much training, working, and seeing people improve. And as long as the numbers are hitting where they need to be, then you're like, okay, they're on the right path. But if you get to someone that's not putting in the effort, not caring about the work, not caring about the people, they're bringing a real hostile environment to the community around them, then it's like you got to make that's quick, right? That's almost immediate. So if someone's coming in and they're yelling at staff and they're, screaming at clients, and it's like, yeah, there's no second chance on that one. You just got to go, right? And
Mm.
here's the reasons why, right?
Yep. Yep.
You know, but
And,
if
and on
it's
the, go ahead, go ahead.
no, if it's people that are putting in the effort, they may just not, they may be having a struggle. Then you have to look at yourself and say, okay, are we training them right? Are we doing what we
Right.
need to do to get them where they need to be? Because they have the skill set. They're just not accomplishing what you expect them to. So work with them to get them where you want them. And now, if it goes on 2 years or past the time that you expected, then you're going to have a conversation. But for the most part, if you can train them, keep them comfortable with the environment, let them go through their process and how they want to do the business and growing it, then I think it typically can work out.
Yeah. And then on the flip side, what criteria do you set uh, so that you can say, oh, I can now trust this person. I am comfortable that they are going to get the job done. I can give them autonomy. I don't need to, stay on top of them. They're on it. Like, what criteria do you set for that? Because again, I know it's hard for many people to kind of give control, right? Especially if it's something that you've been doing, it's something you hold right true to your chest, and you're like, hey, this is my thing, but you got to let go, right? Because you need to move on to bigger and higher value things. What is the criteria you set for that?
Well, I think it's for that because the technology is kind of different, right? For what you do, it's a little different than the insurance piece. Because in insurance, it's almost like consulting versus sales, right? And helping people understand, what products they have, how it can help them, what it's going to actually cover for them, where it's going to provide a level of protection, and where there can actually be cost savings that compared to what you currently have, right? So that's a discussion, right? That's a conversation that you have with people. So when you're with someone and going through that, that's like a time thing. So, you go out with them a couple times, you make sure they're comfortable, you see how they're interacting with people, and then, you have to let them go on their own. It's like, give it a shot. You go out with someone maybe a couple times, listen to them on the phone, talking to clients, meet with them, if they're having meeting with a client, go out with them one or two times. Make sure they're getting their feet wet, understanding what they're doing, see if there's a process, what their process is, make some recommendations. But for the most part, after one or two times, three times, maybe you're letting them go, because if they understand that piece of it, you see that they can communicate, you see that they can make the client comfortable, you see that they know the products, the services that are going to be provided, whether it be on the phone or in person, then you got to let them say grow your business. And your job at that point as the owner is to help them grow that, right? Give them opportunities, help them find lead opportunities, utilize their social media a little bit better to bring in more opportunities, set up, events, things like that for them to go to. So that's where your job comes in. But you just really take that time to make sure that they're sort of getting their understanding of what the role is, and then you kind of let them go. So it's easier on that end. From a technology standpoint, like, just like you, I ran people in technology, and that's a scary piece. Because you let them go, next thing you know, you got somebody calling you saying they screwed up major, right?
Yeah.
Systems are down, or something went out that wasn't supposed to go out, and now it's a whole big thing.
Yeah.
So that's like a cross your fingers thing. You're kind of making sure that you got the right people, because you really do have to trust them in the technology space, right?
I mean, for me, it's I'm okay with people failing forward.
Right.
So you can make a mistake as long as you correct and you say, hey, I know what I did wrong. I'm not going to do it again.
Right.
As you're learning, hopefully there aren't too many of those, but I'm okay if those are being made as long as a person is adjusting and saying, okay, understood. I made the mistake here. It won't happen again. Right.
Right.
And so like it's part of the learning process. And it's one of those things, to your point, where as long as we have everything documented, we have operating procedures, and we are helping them along the way and providing the proper support, then I'm okay with giving people autonomy. Just because it's like, again, if I am constantly micromanaging you and I have to stay on top of you, then clearly I
What's
made
the
a
point?
mistake, right? Then
Yeah.
what's the
What's the
point, right?
point?
It's sort of
Yep.
like the point of this is to you bring someone in to help, right? Offload some of these things so that I can focus on other things,
Right.
uh, and give them some room to grow and to learn. Obviously, if major mistakes are made, that's a different discussion. But at that point, if someone is making a major mistake, it's because I've given them the keys to the castle or keys to the kingdom, right? And it's on me basically to say, oh, I made a misstep there where I gave them the keys before they were ready.
Right.
And so it's like making sure that when I'm giving them those keys, that I say, okay, they've proven that they can handle this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, it doesn't mean that something won't go wrong, but like I am fairly confident that the likelihood is very low that they're going to make a major mistake, and so I can help them move into taking on those additional responsibilities. But to your point, yes, it's I guess on the flip side, when you start to recognize that someone just again isn't performing,
Yeah.
then yeah, it's having those discussions, documenting it, and then taking the next steps, the necessary steps to say, hey, I'm going to try to help you, but at this point, it's either you improve or we have to have a different discussion, and we may
Yeah.
have to part ways.
And they know they're not performing up to par. I mean, that happens, right? It happens to all of us. I mean, it just may be. I mean, I've been in situations where, and I know we're getting short on time, but I've been in situations myself where I've, been in a position and I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this for you guys anymore. you know? So it's like you have one foot out the door already. And then it's like, okay, well, you're not where we want you to be. And then but for me, it becomes a pride thing. So I just get to where I want to be and then I leave anyway. So it's like that. I've done that a couple times. So I get where I want to be and I just like, okay, I made a commitment. Here you go. This is what we agreed to. I'm out.
Right.
But that's, the people typically know. And it may be a situation where the fit wasn't where they wanted to be and they're deciding to move on. That's why they're not doing what they needed to do.
Yeah. And I think it's important that we also emphasize, we've said it, but I just want to make sure we emphasize that, if you're continuing to hire people and they're not a fit, and it tends to be more of a reoccurrence as opposed to, oh, it's a one-off.
Right.
Maybe you should take a step back and look at, again, what your onboarding process is, what your training process is,
Right.
and make sure that you have that well established, because at that point, it's one of two things. It's either your interview process needs to be improved,
Right.
or yes, you're not training properly. You're not showing people what they need to do. You're not setting expectations. That's the other thing, right? Making sure you're setting clear expectations about their role, their responsibilities.
Yeah.
Because if that continues to happen, it's not that you're hiring the wrong people. It's that there's something wrong with your process, right? You need to tune your process a bit. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we can see. I don't want to get political or anything, so I'll just leave it. So I was thinking about saying something, but I will not say anything. I won't say that.
We're apolitical, Cecil, but go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can see it. You can see it in, when things are mismanaged and things aren't managed correctly. You see how things turn out, right? The people that are doing the job can be fine. It's just that, you maybe got to look at your leadership to an extent and say, well, maybe we're doing something wrong here. And if you come to that point, then, make changes. Say to yourself, this is not working. We have to do something. We have to do it different. Maybe we have to go back to the way we used to do things because that worked better, instead of trying to prove that we can do things better than before. It's like maybe before was good enough, right? That might be it. Or maybe you just need not as many tweaks. Maybe one tweak here, one tweak there.
Right.
But, all right. So I think we're at think we're around 30 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. Were you counting the time? I mean, we started talking and then we started forgetting.
I was not. No, I think we're good. I think we're good. I think the one thing we do want to point out, Cecil, is our new backdrop here, new
Yep.
background. So you may notice that we have a new logo, which is really I'll say a brand of CMV Productions. We are going to be rebranding our podcast to Business Beyond the Bottom Line so that we can focus this more on the business discussions, right? Business topics, and make it easier for people to find us on all the different platforms. But anything else you want to say on that, Cecil?
Yeah, I mean, the main focus of the podcast is really to talk about business, to highlight certain things that we're going through. And when we have guests on, highlight some of the things that they're going through. So people that are watching can really get a better understanding of, that they're not alone if they're going through the same problems, maybe have the similar responses to the things that, that are being put out. Maybe they have additional questions around, that we might not have covered. But it really focuses around business and helping each other, really helping each other learn. So we feel that Business Beyond the Bottom Line sort of focuses on that with CMV as our production company. And we'll look, this is one of the many podcasts that we're going to be putting out in the future. So Business Beyond the Bottom Line is our baby. It's brought on by the CMV production line. That's me and Vic. And we're looking to put out a heck of a lot more, but we need the support of everybody that's watching. Subscribe, tell your friends. We're really going to be looking to push this a lot more so people can get a really better understanding. I think we have a good discussions, things that people need to hear. And, we obviously want comments to come in so we can get more insight into that. And then we're going to go live at some point to really have some live discussions and really talk about things that are going on, maybe in day-to-day as well as day-to-day business and how it's being impacted with other things that are going on in the world. So those will be really good topics that are coming up soon.
All right.
All right. So thank you, everyone, for taking the time to watch. We really do appreciate it. As I said before, please subscribe. And, the next podcast is going to be coming soon. Like it, push it out, share it with others. Really, we do appreciate all that you do for us as far as supporting us and viewing what we do. And thank you for taking the time today with us. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks.